Coming! Away she skimmed. Skimmed means moving quickly and lightly over the surface, over the lawn, up the path, up the steps, across the veranda, and into the porch, the sheltered area at the entrance to a building with a roof. In the hall, her father and Laurie were brushing their hats, ready to go to the office. Mr. Sheridan and Laurie were brushing their hats because they have to go to the office. I say, Laura, said Laurie very first, you might just give a squeeze at my coat for this afternoon. See if it wants pressing. Laurie was asking his sister Laura to give a squeeze at his coat, to look at his coat, if it needs pressing, if it needs ironing. I will, said she. Laura said she'd do the work. Suddenly, she couldn't stop herself because she was feeling so many things. She had different kinds of thoughts in her head. She ran at Laurie and gave him a small, quick squeeze. Squeeze means hug. She gave Laurie a quick hug. Laura was gasping because she was taking quick, short breath as she came the long way. Because she came a long way. Oh, I do love parties, don't you? Gasped Laura. If only they organize a party, then Laura would get the chance to spend time with the nice workmen. So she is asking her brother. Rather, said Laura's warm boy's voice, and he squeezed his sister too. Laurie also gave his sister a hug and gave her a gentle push. Dash off to the telephone, old girl. Old girl is a cute nickname for his sister Laura. And then Laurie said her to attend the call. The telephone. Yes, yes. Oh, yes, Kitty. Good morning, dear. Come to lunch? Do, dear. Delighted, of course. Laura was talking to Kitty, their neighbor, who was also invited to attend the party. It will only be a very scratch meal, just the sandwich crusts. Scratch meal means a meal made from scratch or with minimally processed ingredient, a very light meal. The sandwich crusts means the outer edges of bread slices. So they would make something with that and broken meringue shells and what's left over. Meringue shells refer to the dessert made by stiffly beaten egg whites and sugar. So they would make something for their party. Yes, isn't it a perfect morning? Laura wonders that the morning is a perfect one. You're white? Oh, I certainly should. One moment, hold the line. Mother's calling. And Laura sat back. What, mother? Can't hear. Laura could not hear what her mother was saying. Mrs. Sheridan's voice floated down the stairs. Tell her to wear that sweet hat she had on last Sunday. Mrs. Sheridan wanted that Kitty might wear the sweet hat she had on Sunday. Mother says you are to wear that sweet hat you had on last Sunday. Good, 1 o'clock. Bye-bye. So Laurie, so Laura informed Kitty that Kitty must wear that sweet hat, and their party would be at 1 o'clock. Laura put back the receiver. Laura put the receiver down, flung her arms over her head. She moved her arms over her head suddenly, took a deep breath. She was breathing slowly through the nose, then out through the mouth. Stretched, she pushed out her arms and let them fall. Ha! She sighed, and the moment after this sigh, she sat up quickly. She was still listening. She became very attentive. She started listening very carefully what was happening around her. All the doors in the house seemed to be open, and it seemed that the doors were open. The house was alive with soft, quick steps and running voices. The house has gained its vitality. It was alive again with people who were walking and talking in a very low voice. The green baize door that led to the kitchen regions swung open and shut with a muffled thud. Green baize door means a door to which cloth had been tacked to deaden noise. A door which separates the servants' quarters from the family's living quarters. The door was opened and shut with a muffled thud, with a very minimal noise. And now there came a long, chuckling, absurd sound. There was some different sound. It was the heavy piano being moved on its stiff casters. Caster means a small wheel, one of a set. The piano had been moved on its stiff wheels. So by this the chuckling sound was produced. But the air, if you stopped to notice, was the air always like this? Laura suddenly noticed something which was very unusual about the air, about the atmosphere. Little faint winds were playing chase in at the tops of the windows, out at the doors. She felt the faint winds were blowing there. And there were two tiny sunny spots, one on the ink pot, one on a silver photograph frame, playing too. Darling little spots. Those sunny little spots were very dear to her, especially the one on the ink pot lid. The sunbeams were falling on the ink pot lid. It was quite warm, a warm little silver star, and it seemed like a silver star. She could have kissed it. The front doorbell pealed. The front doorbell rang, and there sounded the rustle of Sadie's print skirt on the stairs. A man's voice murmured. Sadie answered, careless. I'm sure I don't know. Wait, I'll ask Mrs. Sheridan. Something had happened. So Sadie said that she's quite sure, but she would definitely ask Mrs. Sheridan for her concern. What is it, Sadie? Laura came into the hall. It's the florist, Miss Laura. It was indeed. The florist had come. There, just inside the door, stood a wide, shallow tray full of pots of pink lilies. Shallow tray means the tray having not much distance between top and bottom. So a tray full of pots, and which consisted of pink lilies. No other kind. Nothing but lilies. There were various kinds of lilies. Canna lilies, big pink flowers, wide open, radiant, almost frighteningly alive on bright crimson stems. There were a variety of flowers, especially various kinds of lilies. Pink lilies, canna lilies, big pink flowers, which was which were radiant, which were very bright on their crimson stems. Oh, Sadie, said Laura, and the sound was like a little moan. She crouched down. Laura moaned and then crouched down. Laura bent on her knees as she lowers herself at the blaze of the lilies. Blaze usually means a large and dangerous fire, but here in this story, blaze refers to the abundance of lilies, the bright color of lilies. She felt they were in her fingers. She could feel the lilies on her lips, growing in her breast. As she lowers herself down, she could feel the huge flowers everywhere. It's some mistake, she said faintly. Nobody ever ordered so many. Sadie, go and find mother. Laura was delighted in the presence of the flower, but she also asked Sadie to find out what's happening there. But at that moment, Mrs. Sheridan joined them. Mrs. Sheridan has come. It's quite right, she said calmly. Yes, I ordered them. So Mrs. Sheridan ordered the numerous lilies. Aren't they lovely? She pressed Laura's arm. Mrs. Sheridan gently pressed Laura's arm and said, aren't those flowers lovely? Aren't they beautiful? I was passing this shop yesterday and I saw them in the window. And I suddenly thought for once in my life I shall have enough canna lilies. Garden party will be a good excuse. Then Mrs. Sheridan revealed that when she saw the flowers while passing the shop, she thought that she should have enough of canna lilies. And as they are organizing the party, they can buy plenty of flowers. But I thought you said you didn't mean to interfere, said Laura. In the beginning of the story, we have seen that Mrs. Sheridan said that she would not interfere in any matter. And she asked Laura to organize the party. So Laura is asking the question. She's saying it to her mother. Sadie had gone. The florist's man was still outside at his van. The florist man was still standing outside She put her arm round her mother's neck and gently, very gently, she bit her mother's ear. The playful nature of children, she bit her mother's ear very gently. My darling child, you wouldn't like a logical mother, would you? Don't do that. Here's the man. So Mrs. Sheridan said that children would definitely do not love a logical mother. And Mrs. Sheridan has not shown herself as a logical mother. And then she forbade Laura to bite her ear because the man was still standing there. He carried more lilies, still another whole tray. So there were plenty of lilies in their house. Bank them up just inside the door on both sides of the porch, please, said Mrs. Sheridan. Bank them up. Bank up means pile up. Mrs. Sheridan asked them to bring the flowers inside the door and pile them up. Don't you agree, Laura? And then she asks for her daughter's consent. Oh, I do, mother. Laura agrees. In the drawing room, Meg, Jose, and good little Hans had at last succeeded in moving the piano. These three people were trying to move the piano. Now, if we put this Chesterfield against the wall and move everything out of the room except the chairs, don't you think? Chesterfield means a sofa with padded arms and back of the same height. So if they put the Chesterfield against the wall and leave everything out of the room except the chairs, only chairs and the Chesterfield would be inside the room. How would that be? Quite. That would be also good. Hans, move these tables into the smoking room. Smoking room is a particular room which is only used for smoking. And bring a sweeper to take these marks off the carpet. And that Hans should bring a sweeper to clean the carpet. And one moment, Hans. Jose loved giving orders to the servants. Hans was their servant, and Jose was ordering something. And they loved obeying her. She always made them feel they were taking part in some drama. The way Jose talked, it seemed, the way she ordered, it seemed that they were taking part in any drama. They were playing some character. Tell Mother and Miss Laura to come here at once. That Mrs. Sheridan and Miss Laura should come. Very good, Miss Yose. She turned to Meg. I want to hear what the piano sounds like, just in case I'm asked to sing this afternoon. Let's try over. So, Meg would sing the song, and she'd play the song on the piano. So that she can hear the song. Let's try over. This life is weary. This is a song. This life is weary. And Yaze is asking her sister May to play the song. Ta ta ta, tita. The piano burst out so passionately that Yaze's face changed. The sound of the piano had something that her facial expression had changed. She clasped her hands. She enfolded her hands. She looked mournfully and enigmatically at her mother and Laura as they came in. Mournfully means sorrowfully. because of the sound. And enigmatically here means in a puzzled way. She was looking at Mrs. Sheridan and Laura as they have entered the room. And now here's the song. This life is means weary means very tired. The journey of the life is tiresome. A tear, the drop of water that comes from someone's eye, which is also referred as crying. A sigh, the long deep breath because of tiredness. A love that changes. Love changes with the forces of time. This life is weary. A tear, a sigh, a love that changes. And then goodbye. The time of parting comes with the word goodbye. But at the word goodbye, and although the piano sounded more desperate than ever, her face broke into a brilliant, gratefully unsympathetic smile. Though she sang this song, she was not satisfied. The sound of the piano was very desperate. That sound made her, that sound compelled her to wear an extremely compassionless smile. Aren't I in good voice, Mummy? She beamed. Beamed means smiled. Then she asked her mom, asked her mother that whether she had a good voice. Again, the song is given here. This life is weary, hope comes to die. Hope has come to an end. The life is tiresome, a dream, a awakening. But there is always a dream which allows the human being to live. A awakening. Awakening means arousing, the moment when someone realizes something for the first time. The very song, This Life is very significant in this short story. But now Sadie interrupted them. What is it, Sadie? If you please, Cook says, have you got the flags for the sandwiches? Sadie is asking whether Mrs. Sheridan have bought the flags for the sandwiches. The flags for the sandwiches, Sadie? Echoed Mrs. Sheridan dreamily. She echoed the exact words. And the children knew by her face that she hadn't got them. It was very clear to her children that she has forgotten. Let me see. And she said to Sadie firmly, tell cook I'll let her have them in 10 minutes. Then Mrs. Sheridan dismisses Sadie and asks Sadie to tell the cook that they should wait for some time and they would get the flags for the sandwiches in 10 minutes. Sadie went. Now, Laura, said her mother quickly, come with me into the smoking room. I have got the name somewhere on the back of an envelope. So Mrs. Sheridan asked her daughter Laura to Go with her into the smoking room. You will have to write them out for me. And Laura would have to write a few names on the back of an envelope. Meg, go upstairs this minute and take that wet thing off your head. She asked Meg to go upstairs and get the wet towel off her head. Yours, run and finish dressing this instant. She is known as the social butterfly, so she should dress up immediately. Otherwise, she might be late for the party. Do you hear me, children? The children must carry out their mother's order. Or shall I have to tell your father when he comes home tonight? Otherwise, Mrs. Sheridan would inform Mr. Sheridan about the incidents, about their behavior. And Yose, specify cook if you do go into the kitchen, will you? So Yose should specify the cook, console the cook who was in the kitchen. I'm terrified of her this morning. Mrs. Sheridan was terrified by the sight of the cook because Mrs. Sheridan forgot to bring the flags for the sandwiches and they have to prepare it for the party. The envelope was found at last behind the dining room clock. Though how it had got there, Mrs. Sheridan could not imagine. It was beyond their imagination that how an envelope could be kept behind the clock in the dining room. One of you children must have stolen it out of my bag. Mrs. Sheridan said that it must be done by anyone of her children. Because I remember vividly cream cheese and lemon curd. Have you done that? And then she asked Laura to write the name of these items. Yes, egg and Mrs. Sheridan held the envelope away from her. She took the envelope. It looks like mice. It can't be mice, can it? She then compares the handwriting of her daughter, Laura, to mice in a playful way. It was very tiny, and the way she had written it, it seemed like mice. To her mum. Olive bet, said Laura, looking over her shoulder. Yes, of course, Olive. What a horrible combination it sounds. Egg and olive. So, in the opinion of Mrs. Sheridan, the combination of egg and olive is horrible combination. They were finished at last. They have completed the work, and Laura took them off to the kitchen. She found Yoza there pacifying the cook, who did not look at all terrifying. So somehow her sister had consoled the cook. I have never seen such exquisite sandwiches, said Yosa's rapturous voice. Exquisite means extremely beautiful. The sandwiches were extremely beautiful. How many kinds did you say there were? Cook? 15? So she was asking, how many kinds were there? 15. 15, Miss Yose. So the sandwiches were of 15 types. Well, cook, I congratulate you. She then congratulates the cook. Cook swept up crusts with a long sandwich knife, and the cook was removing the crusts with a long knife and smiled broadly. because the cook was overwhelmed by the praising. And so the cook was smiling broadly. Godbers has come, announced Sadie, issuing out of the pantry. Pantry means a small room where food is kept. And Godbers has come means Godbers man has come to deliver the creamy puffs or the cream puffs. She had seen the man pass the window. She means Sadie. Sadie had seen that Godber's man passed the window. That meant the cream puffs had come. Godbers were famous for their cream puffs. Nobody ever thought of making them at home. So they ordered from Godbers. Bring them in and put them on the table, my girl, ordered cook. So the cream puffs should be carried in and placed on the table. Sadie brought them in and went back to the door. Sadie brought those pups in. Of course, Laura and Jose were far too grown up to really care about such things. Laura and Jose were grown up girls. All the same, they couldn't help agreeing that the pups looked very attractive. The puffs were very enticing, very alluring, very. Cook began arranging them, shaking off the extra icing sugar. Shaking off the extra icing sugar, the cook was arranging the cream puffs. Don't they carry one back to all one's parties? Said Laura. In simple words, Laura was thinking that the cream puffs were a very necessary item for parties. I suppose they do, said practical Yoz, who never liked to be carried back. So Yoz said that I suppose they do. I think so. They look beautifully light and feathery, I must say. The cream puffs were very lightweight and feathery. Have one each, my dears, said cook in her comfortable voice. The cook was offering them to have a cream puff. Your ma won't know. It means your mother would not know. Oh, impossible. That is not that was not possible for them. Fancy cream puffs so soon after breakfast. So they have finished their breakfast moments ago, and now they don't think that they should have the cream puffs. The very idea made one shudder. The thinking of the cream puffs would make anyone shudder, anyone shakeable, because it was very uncomfortable idea of having them after breakfast. All the same, this is a phrase which means in spite of. 2 minutes later, Yose and Laura were licking their fingers with that absorbed inward look that only comes from whipped cream. So after 2 minutes, they tried the cream puff. They were licking their fingers. They were licking the whipped cream. Let's go into the garden, out of the back way, out by the back way, suggested Laura. So now Laura is interested to visit the garden by the back way. I want to see how the men are getting on with the marquee. They're such awfully nice men. So Laura wanted to see how they were working in the garden. But the back door was blocked by Cook, Sadie, Godber's man, and Hans. So 4 people have blocked the door. Something had happened. What? had happened. So now the story is revealing something very different. The tone of the story is changing. Tuk tuk tuk, clucked cook like an agitated hen. Agitated means troubled. Like a troubled hen, the cook made a low sound. Clucked means made a low sound. Sadie had her hand clapped to her cheek as though she had toothache. Sadie, what was Sadie doing? Sadie hold her cheeks with the palms of the hands, as if she had toothache. Hans's face was screwed up in the effort to understand. Hans was trying to understand what has happened. Only Godber's man seemed to be enjoying himself. It was his story. Godber's man is the only character here who is aware of the story, who knows very well what has happened. What's the matter? What's happened? There's been a horrible accident, said Cook. A man killed. Then the cook said that a man has been killed in a horrible accident. A man killed? Where? How? When? So hearing that a man has been killed, a series of questions comes up. How did the incident happen? Where did it happen? When did it happen? But Godber's man wasn't going to have his story snatched from under his very nose. Snatched means seized. Godber's man would tell about everything by himself because he was the only one who knew what had happened to the man who had been killed.